allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone to the August meeting of the Irondequoit Zoning Board of Appeals. Before we get underway, there's a few administrative details that I need to attend to. First, I need to advise you that the fire exit is located to your left. In the event of a fire, you will be notified by an announcement. If so notified, please move in a calm and orderly fashion to the exit. Do not use the elevators. Use either the north or the south stairs to leave the building. The meetings are being recorded. They're also being broadcast live for the purpose of a record and minutes. And Donna is taking notes, and she's taking notes for the purposes of minutes, not as a verbatim transcript. So when you come to the podium, please identify yourself each time with your name, initially with your name and address. If you're coming up a second time, which would only be true of the applicants, just state your name will be sufficient. We follow the items in the order that they appear on our agenda. There are extra copies of the agenda on the table just inside the door. Once the case has been called, the applicant or their representative should come up to the podium, identify themselves by their name and their address, then raise their right hand to be sworn. After they're sworn, they can present their case. During the presentation of the applicant's case, the board can ask questions or comments, make comments, and engage in discussion with the applicant concerning the application. Once that process has been concluded, then we open it up for the public input. We've identified so far 3 categories of public input. First is those who wish to speak in favor of the application. Second are those who wish to speak in opposition to the application. And the third are those who are neither opposed or in favor of the application but want to talk to us about some aspect of it. Once that process has been concluded, we then will let the applicant address anything that arose during the public input portion, and then the case will be closed. Once the case is closed, we'll move on to the next case. During the applicant's presentation and during the comments that anyone during the public input portion makes, there is not to be any comment from the gallery. We do not, it's an opportunity for people to address the board. If you're speaking in favor of the application, you don't get a second chance to speak in favor of it later on or against it or to talk about it. You have one chance at the podium. We do not, well, we haven't so far, and I don't see any need tonight to limit the time, but we would appreciate it if you'd be somewhat precise in your remarks. We can chat later, but address the application. Once we've gotten through all of the cases that are on our agenda, we will take a short recess, and then following the recess, we will come back and deliberate on each of the cases. The order of our deliberation is based on 2 factors: who's present and where you are on the agenda. So if the first applicant has left, but the second applicant is here, we will take the second applicant's case first. And then we will deliberate on each of the cases in order they appear on the agenda for which the applicant is present. Then we'll go back to the top of the agenda and take them in the order of the applicants who have left. During this portion of the meeting, there is no opportunity for public input unless it's requested by the board. We can make exceptions to every rule. That's part of being the board. If you leave and you're interested in knowing what the outcome was of a particular case, you can either catch it on the TV at home if you get home fast enough, or you can contact the zoning and building department here at the town hall tomorrow morning after 9 or any day after 9, and they'll be glad to tell you what the result was for each of the cases. So, having said all that, I think we can move to the first item on our agenda.
ZB 1706-4, upon matter of request by Robin Lorch for an area variance to construct a deck in the rear yard with less than required rear setback on premises 49 Ontario View Street in an R2 residential district.
Robin Lorch, 49 Ontario View Street.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. So you'd like to build a deck on the back of your house,
Correct.
and it'll be too close to the rear lot line,
Correct.
if I understand correctly, by about 6 feet.
Okay.
It's going to be, well, you said that the code requires 30 feet. It's going to be 24, so the variance is 6,
Okay.
if my
The-
math is right.
The deck is 12 feet.
Right, but
From the
it's
house.
going to be,
Oh, I
the
see.
southern end of the
Yes,
deck is
yes.
going to be 24 feet from the rear line instead of 30, so you want us to give you permission to have
Yes.
12 feet instead of 6.
Correct.
Okay.
24 feet instead of 30.
Right. But her deck could be 12 instead of 6.
Oh, all right, okay. I thought you were talking about the variance part of it.
No. Switch to the deck. I notice your neighbor has a deck on the back of their house as well, and they don't seem to be too uncommon these days.
They do not. It's kind of, almost every house down the line has a deck.
And you're still finishing the addition on the back?
Correct. The inside is finished, the outside is not. But once I have the variance, 'cause they want to do the ledger board, I guess it's called, around at the same time that they put the siding on.
That makes sense.
I stopped by the house a couple times. You weren't home. I just kind of meandered toward the back of the driveway
Okay.
and looked at where the deck would end.
Uh-huh.
And it looked like the deck would end very similar to some of the neighbors' back
Pretty
decks.
close.
So it looked like it would be fine in my opinion.
Great.
I also meandered.
I didn't see any of you guys. Oh, that's not true. I saw you, Joseph. I did.
To be quick. And what I noticed, two things I noticed. First of all, the back edge of the property, I didn't think was very clearly defined. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not like a fence, but
No, there's not.
there's something that kind of shows where the end of the property is, but it's not really clear like a fence would be.
Correct.
So that kind of softens the whole backyard effect. But I also noticed there's a tree back there. Now, is that tree going to be affected by the deck?
The tree that's in my yard?
Yes.
No, that is a tulip tree, and that is not coming down. I will still have 2 feet from the deck to the tree.
Oh,
So, no,
Nice,
the tree
nice.
is not coming. That tree was planted by the man who built the house, so that tree is not coming down.
okay. Great.
Mr. President, this is more of, I also meandered and you didn't see me, but,
Just for the record, we do a lot of meandering around the applicants' homes.
I think,
So far, the police haven't been called. so.
I think her house is an example of a very small, beautiful property, but very small property that doesn't quite fit the current standards. So maybe suggest maybe to the rulemaking committee or the town board that instead of having, for the people who buy these houses, no other choice, that maybe there is kind of a blanket, it's okay to replace or repair because it won't fit the current code that we have.
We can make any suggestions to the town board that we like.
Okay.
What they do with them. I mean, that would involve, essentially, that would involve an amendment to the zoning code.
Because we're not going to tear down the houses or move them, so
No.
they're there. But they just, I think maybe just make the suggestion. That's my
It
suggestion.
looked like there were several houses on your street that have had a lot of work done to them lately.
There are, which is a good thing.
And then there's one at the end that needs a lot of work.
There's a couple of those.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here who'd like to speak in opposition to the application?
I have 3 letters to submit.
Oh, if you'd hand them to Mr. Evans, he'll pass them around.
Thank you.
Anyone who'd like to talk about decks, rear setbacks, anything like that? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter. I will note that there are 3 letters in support, I'm assuming they're in support since you're handing them to us, of the application that are being passed around. Do we need to identify those for the record?
If you'd like to.
Sure, we probably should. One appears, is it Megan Floor
Yes.
and Sherry Allen at 43 Ontario View Street, and Donna Needcut?
Yeah, I think that's close.
Close?
Better than I do.
Needcut Hemmingle at 58 Ontario View Street. So those letters are in favor of the deck. So we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
And call the next case.
ZB 1708-1, upon the matter of request by Joe Santa Croce for an area variance to operate an auto repair garage with support services with less than required parking on premises 1378 East Ridge Road in a C Business District.
Good evening, Chairman Hinman, members of the zoning board. My name is Mitch Rowe. I live at 143 Corwin Road in Rochester, and I'm here with Joe Santa Croce, the owner of the subject property, as well as Santa Motors at 915 East Ridge Road. I'm acting in an informal capacity, assisting Joe with the legalization process.
You can both raise your right hands for a moment. Do you swear that or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
Joe is here before you this evening seeking approval to waive required parking spots pursuant to Article 9 of the Town of Arundecoit zoning code. The code dictates that the retail rate of 4.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet be applied. That results in a requirement of 59 parking spots. The building is a little over 14,000 square feet. So that's kind of how the math comes about. Joe is proposing a total of 15 parking spots be proposed to support the operation. Given the nature of the proposed facility, which will largely support his existing business at 915 East Ridge Road, which is a retail car lot, which was approved by the town approximately 7 years ago. Joe currently has 2 support locations within the city of Rochester, one for mechanical, one for collision, which was the core base of the Santa Motors business going back to the 80s. And what Joe's looking to do is to consolidate all of his operations to the town of Arundecoit. He believes that that will create some operational efficiencies for him. And given the support nature of this proposal, Joe believes strongly that 15 parking spots outside the building will be more than adequate. He believes that the vast majority of the cars that come to the site will go right inside the building for either mechanical or repair operations to ready them for retail display at 915. So that's a little bit of the background of the request. We submitted a letter of intent that provided that information and also sought to address the factors that the board would consider in determining whether or not to grant or deny the application. I'd like to just take a minute and address the standards. On the issue of neighborhood character, Joe believes that given the historical light industrial use of this property, that his proposed use will not adversely impact the neighborhood character of the subject property, which, as we understand it, up until Joe's purchase had been vacant for approximately 20 years. Another factor on the neighborhood character consideration, we believe, is that it is largely set off of East Ridge Road, down in the back of other uses, and so we think that it will largely be unobserved from the East Ridge Road commercial corridor. In terms of alternate solution standard, Joe believes that there are limited opportunities to develop additional off-street parking beyond the 15 that are proposed. One option could be to pave the grass area, which is on the southern portion of the parcel heading from the existing building up to East Ridge Road. But given that he doesn't believe that those spots would be necessary for an efficient and organized operation, that would also serve to kind of bring that use up to the corridor, and he believes that maintaining an existing grass area would provide some buffer of the use and keep it down in the back. In terms of the third standard, the significance of the request, Joe feels that the requested waiver is not significant, and as stated earlier on at least one of the other standards, that additional spots he believes would not be necessary for his operation. The fourth standard, potential impacts, similar to the others, given the historic nature of the use of the property as light industrial and its recess from the Ridge Road corridor, he thinks that the impacts are either minimal or don't exist in terms of adverse. And on the last standard, self-created, as we've indicated in the letter of intent, perhaps Joe could have better anticipated the 4.5 spots per 1,000 before he bought the property. But at the end of the day, he feels that the 15 more accurately reflect what he thinks he needs. And I'll just say, maybe to close on that, and we would welcome any questions that the board has, is that the 15 spots, we believe, will be principally employees of the facility and limited spots for the public. Joe does not anticipate that a lot of customers will come to 1378. The majority of the customers will go to 915 to conduct their affairs, the purchase, and any ancillary or support services to ready their contemplated purchase of a vehicle for delivery. So those
So is this going to be a service garage? Like where you'd go to get oil changes and things like that?
Yes, yes it is.
but for
And-
your
and
cars
For
yourself.
our cars that we set up, we change the oils, make sure all the rust is off the cars, we make sure they're set up.
All right, so those people would come, but that car would go right in to the garage to be done, right?
Yes.
They'd have an appointment or something like that? And then the other thing you mentioned was collision,
Right,
so those would be towed there
they would be towed in, yeah.
and put into the collision area.
Yep.
So you really wouldn't have anybody hanging around for any period of
No.
time, right? I mean, I've noticed there are several other places that along Ridge Road that service cars, and I've never seen more than 15 cars
No.
parked in any of them at a single time.
They're all big shops, you can come in and go,
And yours is going to be one of those, you'd probably be one of the biggest, right?
probably, yeah.
Yeah.
How many employees will be working there on a given day?
Probably about 10.
That may not all have cars. right?
Yeah, not everybody drives either. Any other questions?
If it became a problem, you could always drive them down from your dealership.
Well, a lot of them, they usually show up at the dealership and we take their cars.
I meant the employees.
Oh,
The inside of the building's got quite a few spots also, doesn't it?
oh yeah, a lot of spots in there. It's a big building. I go 3 deep, and I'm gonna have 4 doors on one
I
side.
got the tour by one of your employees, and it's quite impressive, all the money you're putting into that building.
Yeah, it's gonna be a real nice
The
place.
offices look great, and the structure looks real good inside.
Thank you.
Is there enough room down there for the 2 rows of parking and still maintain the driveways that are serving the back of those other parcels?
Yeah, there's enough room back there.
Question for staff, will this require site plan approval?
It's already received site plan approval
Okay.
last month.
If I could on that, Mr. Chairman, I should have included that in the opening remarks. In June, Joe and I came before the planning board for consideration for site plan approval. We were prepared to come back to the planning board after other approvals were in order to kind of wrap it up, and the planning board had made a motion, seconded, and was approved to grant site plan approval conditioned on the matter here before the zoning board on the waiver of the parking spots. We also were before the town board for a special use permit at the town board's July meeting, so this is actually our 3rd public hearing on the application.
Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the application? Would anyone like to talk about parking, service garages, anything like drainage, anything like that? All right, seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to the next case.
ZB 1708-2, upon the matter of request by Thomas Piran for a special use permit to harbor 4 hens with coop pursuant to Section 23570 of Town Code on premises 151 Hillview Drive in an R1 residential district.
Doesn't seem like it'd be a meeting without a chicken application.
Board members, good evening, everybody. My name is Thomas Perrin, and myself and my family, we reside at 151 Hillview Drive.
You could raise your right hand.
Yes, sir.
Do you swear or affirm that anything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
And your son is sworn also, and he looks like he's eager to tell us something.
Yes, very eager indeed. We are here tonight, obviously, as it was read. You know, we're seeking permission to build a prefabricated chicken coop, and more importantly, that would house 3 to 4 hen chickens. The specs are, you know, as you probably have, are written down, drawn out. What is it? Just basic, brief background. I've always been an avid gardener, and amongst that was, you know, vegetables and whatnot. But my experience is last year I tried deer have ravaged our vegetable gardens each and every year. So this was something we turned to, you know, as another form of farming, and also as, you know, as a way to show and teach my son responsibility. I would be the primary caretaker, of course. And honestly, I don't have a presentation quite as well as the gentleman before me, but that.
It's all right. We're pretty familiar with chickens.
All right.
When I was out yesterday, I explained to you and you indicated you had no issues with any of the conditions that we usually impose.
Correct.
And the 4 hens, up to 4 hens, if we approve that, that's what we usually in the past have done.
Yeah,
Are
you
the
said
ones
something
that you
about.
start with, and they don't, if one of them passes away, then you have 3,
Okay,
okay?
I understand.
I stopped by a week ago Saturday. Nobody answered. There was a car in the driveway, but I didn't feel comfortable just walking around into your backyard.
Oh.
But from the side of the garage, I kind of looked back. It does drop off quite a bit back there.
Correct. Judging wise, I would say from our back wall, it's a raised ranch, but from our back wall, it extends to just about from me to you. And then there's a drop off onto a second level. And then that goes probably about the half a distance from you and I, and then it drops off, and then you have trees and whatnot, bushes, shrubs. But this chicken coop would be up facing the back wall between our two downstairs basement windows. So it would be hugged up against the house, not favoring either side, would basically be centralized. And then I was planning on a 4x4 compost square where, you would take the droppings and whatnot, and mix it with the hay or cedar shavings, whatever or pine shavings that we're going to use, and kitchen compost.
What's further behind your house? Is there other homes, or is it park?
The exact dimensions, I know we had a lot square footage. There's a gentleman, he's an attorney, but he, down past the two levels, gosh, I mean, over 130 feet, yeah. He resides below us. We overlook
Ed,
it.
I think I know who you're talking about. It's on Cranbrook Drive, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Ed D'Amico.
Yes.
Okay, it looked like maybe you were against some part of the park. And
Oh, no, we do enjoy it being quite, forested or whatnot, but no, we have neighbors that are on Cranbrook.
Okay, that was my only question.
Any other questions or comments?
You're not the owner of the property, though?
No, sir, my mother.
Okay, and she's okay with it, I take it, right?
Oh, of course. I'd never do that to her.
Actually, I think she's the one who submitted the application, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I did the drawings and the initial, and then she wrote the letter and sent it.
Okay, I just want to comment on this because we talked about this on the way in. It's certainly a very legal thing to do. The main thing that we consider is it going to work in the neighborhood? And that has a lot to do with the neighbors. It looks to me like your plan, nothing's anywhere near the neighbors. It's right in the back of your house. But the common concern for chickens is having visitors in the form of other
Vermin?
rats and other rodents and that type of thing. So if you're ready to prevent their existing back there by putting the wire down into the ground so they can't dig on that type of thing, food's not left out, that type of thing, you should be fine. And those assurances are what the neighbors like to hear, because they don't want these other visitors in their neighborhood.
I could understand.
We can't
of
blame
course.
them for that.
Yes.
We know they're not noisy, and they're not really smelly, but
No.
that's one of the things that has to be considered. So I think you've got it all thought out pretty well.
Yeah, as much as I'd be very responsible, yes. Thank you.
I think your son wanted to say something, right?
Do you have anything you want to share?
Well, if we get these chickens, every day I'm going to go back there and see if they've laid any eggs and probably feed them.
All right. We'll hold you to that.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Anybody who'd like to talk to us about chickens? Seeing none, we'll Close the hearing with respect to this matter and move on to the next hearing.
Thank you.
ZB 1708-3, upon the matter of request by Karen Palmer for an area variance to install 6-foot-high side yard fencing exceeding maximum permitted height on premises 125 Charlton Road in an R1 residential district.
I'm Karen Palmer from 125 Charlton Road.
You'd raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
When I was meandering around, I noticed that there's a 4-foot fence, chain link fence on the west side, and there's no fence on the other side, but your application says that you wanted to put a 6-foot fence on the front and along the west side of your property. So is that going to be butted right up against the chain link fence, or is there going to be a gap between your fence and the neighbor's fence?
The neighbor's fence is I think it's a couple inches in on their property, so I would probably put the posts a couple inches in onto my property, so it's down the property line.
And then I guess my question is, are you and your neighbor going to work cooperatively to pull out the stuff that's going to collect in between the two fences? Like the leaves in the fall and...
Am I able to put it right up to that fence legally? Is that, because I know the neighbor on the other
We
side
don't
just
give
put-
advice.
Okay, well, I would like to put it as close to her fence as possible, to that fence as possible.
My only concern was that between the two fences, a lot of things can gather. And my concern is if you've got if you're telling me that her fence is set in a few inches, then you can't put it on her property because it's not your property.
Right.
So there's going to be a gap, and all my concern is that that gap is going to be cleaned out.
As close as
one or both
possible
of
as I can, that's where I'd like to put the fence.
And that's because you'd like to have some privacy in your yard instead of having everybody who drives around the corner be able to see exactly what
we
you're
have
doing?
a neighbor across the street that, on several accounts, has made very inappropriate comments to my 3 teenage daughters and actually to my neighbor's daughters to the right of me where the fence is. We have a restraining order, but now he puts his chair right in the front lawn and just stares at my daughters, and it's driving me nuts. My neighbor to the right with the chain link fence, there's kind of a little hole in her fence, and she has 2 pit bulls, one which has attacked my dog, and 2 has bit my son. So, and they're renters, and the time prior to that, the renters before them also had 2 pit bulls that we're never able to go in the backyard. We're terrified of the neighbors' dogs, and I'd like some privacy to go in my yard.
So this is going to be a 6-foot solid fence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Probably wish you could have 8, right?
They're nice people. I have no problem with that one side, but the guy across the street, yeah, I would definitely love like a big barricade. And we get people from Charlton walking through my yard to go to Titus, like during the school year. There's people constantly, because it's a corner lot, crossing through because it's just a nice open path through my yard. So I would like to have that kind of stopped as well.
Is that students or?
Students, just anybody walking through. It's happened on several accounts. People running through the yard. It's been a high traffic area since I've lived on that corner lot. And I'd like to kind of seclude it a little bit.
Okay.
The fence you propose between the garage, you're gonna put a fence diagonally between the corner of the garage and the corner of the house?
It'd actually be from the shed to the corner of the
Or the
house.
shed, no,
Yeah, so
I'm
the
looking at
garage
this one.
area and the little patio would
We
be
have-
open.
We have a gate in that portion?
Yes, yep. And I also have a list of, from some of the neighbors that happened to be home when I was knocking on everyone's door. And I believe everybody has a copy of this already.
So we have a letter that says, please sign if you don't mind the 6-foot fence in the front side of my yard. And it's signed by Ryan Quinn at 96 Charlton Road, Karen Burns at 60 Charlton Road, Carrie Reed at 117 Charlton Road, Darcy Kemp at 76 Charlton Road, Alicia Vachne at 111 Charlton Road, Don Menges, and Trish Rankowski at 80 Charlton, Darcy Bear at 101 Charlton, Lizette Herzog maybe at 69 Charlton, yes, and Laura Leonardo at 85 Charlton, and Elizabeth Quinton at 122 Charlton, and Chris Pugsley at 128 Charlton, and Sean Samler at 52 Cedarwood, and Christopher Crowlis at 26 Cedarwood, which is the street that's the other part of the corner. I assume the neighbor across the street didn't sign it.
I didn't stop at his
Okay.
house. Everybody else's house I did go to, though. That was
Yes.
home.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll open it up for any public input. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wish to speak in opposition? Anyone like to talk about fences or neighbors who set up chairs in the front yard or anything like that? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter and move on to the next application.
ZB 1708-4, upon the matter of request by Amanda Kenny for an area variance to install a front deck with less than required front setback on premises 210 Meadow Circle in an R2 residential district.
Hi, my name is Amanda Kenny. I live at 210 Meadow Circle, Rochester, New York, 14609.
And if you'd raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So you'd like to have an easier access into your front door than what's there now?
Yes. We had some bricks that were starting to crumble, so it was unsafe. We had a quote for a concrete patio, what we had, and it was like $3,500. So we decided that if we were going to spend a couple $1,000s, that we would like to be able to sit out on our patio and be able to watch. You know, we have young kids, watch our kids on the bike and kind of relax and sit up there, and it looks nicer.
So it's going to, I'm a little, how far out from the house is it going to extend? 8 feet?
It's going to be 8 feet from the house, and
How far did the stairs extend from the house, do you know?
the stairs were, we have a concrete walkway, and the stairs step down to this concrete walkway. What we're proposing is the patio will come out to as far as the concrete patio that's there, and then it'll be fenced along the front, and the entryway for the patio will be will be stepped down onto that concrete walkway. It's kind of hard to explain, but I drew a picture on this. I had some paper signed from some neighbors that were home when I walked by, and you can see in this picture the concrete steps. So it's going to be like a patio, and then the steps going into the concrete patio that's there now.
So you're going to step out of the door onto the patio or the deck, or are you going to go down a couple of stairs and...
Ideally, we'd like to go down 1 or 2 steps just so that there's no like snow accumulation, or, you know, like it's not like we would have to shovel to open that.
So the deck's going to be fairly close to the ground?
Correct.
Okay.
Based on the map, it looks like it's going to be exactly the same amount of feet away from as the
stairs.
That the current stairs and sidewalk is, so it doesn't look like it's going to be further forward
correct.
than what's already there. just a continuation to the left corner of the house.
So basically what you're doing is repairing the stairs that you had there,
That's correct.
just with wood instead of concrete.
Yeah.
And then adding a little sitting area besides?
Yes.
Hope that's not mine.
I was just thinking the same thing.
What's buzzing?
I'll see whose it is.
Yeah, thank you. That's how it might be robbed.
It's not the fire alarm, is it?
Somebody's trying to steal a car.
Somebody sat on their button.
Attached to this sheet of signatures from Kim Page at 187 Fleetwood Drive, Teresa and Michael Luciano at 232 Meadow Circle, Alifair Snowden at 203 Meadow Circle, Jake DeFonzio at 205 Delia Lane, Dwayne Perkers at 156 Meadow Circle, Tim something at 222 Meadow Circle, and Charles Summers at 200 Meadow Circle.
Pardon me, Chairman, did you want to know who's, it's a white Nissan that's parked over near more toward the library.
Oh, good, then it's nobody here.
Somebody in the library.
Don't they have a timer on those things?
Yeah, it's 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's called a
3
bat-
minutes?
It's called a battery.
The battery?
2 or 3 minutes.
Still going. Any questions or comments? All right, does anyone wish to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wish to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone like to talk to us about front steps? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter and move on to the next matter on our agenda.
Did you want this back?
Oh, yeah.
ZB 1708-5, upon the matter of request by Mark and Lydia DeMiller for an area variance to install fencing in side yard on a corner lot with less than required corner front setback on premises 179 Dake Avenue in an R1 residential district.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's Lisa Drymiller, Lisa, just so we can correct
Okay.
that. And,
My name is Mark Drymiller.
and we live at 179 Dake Avenue.
If you'd raise your right hands, do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we've lived at our house for 30 years, and that old chain link fence, which is in the pictures that you have, was there when we moved in. And I hope that you can see from the pictures that it's in terrible disrepair. There's broken pieces, it's rusted, it's been damaged when trees have fallen on it. And so we'd like to have a new fence put in. And the problem is that our existing chain link fence on the Dover side is right on our property line. And so we've talked to the fence people, and we're willing to, if it would be okay, to bring it in 6 inches, and then it would be 3 feet from the sidewalk. And I think that would be great. We wouldn't lose any, a substantial amount of our yard. We'd have a nice new fence, and there is no snow plow that comes down that sidewalk. I know that sometimes that's an issue, but they don't come down our sidewalk on Dover.
Well, as I recall, was the fence near the sidewalk?
Yes. Right now, it's 2.5 feet from the sidewalk.
Yeah, so instead of 3 feet back from the property line, it would be 3 feet from the sidewalk.
Okay.
So it's only a matter of 6 inches that we would like to move the fence into the yard, not towards the street.
Instead of 3 feet.
And you're going to have a 4-foot picket fence, it said?
Traditional picket fence and New York State fence we've hoped to contract with. And the exact same fence is on the corner of Cooper and Belmead, which I just loved that fence.
It's the same kind of fence that's across the street around Dr. Lawrence's old office next to Genrick's,
It's
too.
almost identical to that,
Yeah.
except Dr. Lawrence's fence by Genrich, I think it's staggered. The points are higher than lower than higher.
Ours would be straight.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be black and,
Yes. It appears to be a wrought iron look, but it's an aluminum fence.
aluminum. And
Yes.
there's a lot of those kinds of fences in town, and most of the ones that I've seen look very nice.
A lot better than the old chain.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, the chain link only lasts a certain amount of time.
I think we've gotten our money's worth. It wasn't our money, but.
Yeah, well, oh yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
bought that too.
And I've brought this up before, and I've gotten shot down before, but I gotta bring it to your attention. The traditional one that you have with the points, there's one to the lower right of your example, of your ornamental fence example, that has it's the one that says alternative contemporary.
Right.
It does have the points, but then there's a top piece that's flat. And because it's along a sidewalk, I always have a concern that somebody's gonna fall off their bike and get poked. So,
It's not sharp on the
Yeah.
top, though. It's like crimped metal on the top, so it's
Right.
it's
It's
basically
rounded.
rounded, so
Yeah.
it's not, It's not
I
sharp.
just have again, it's a personal concern of mine that somebody were to fall on it, it would poke them.
Yeah.
And if there was a bar across.
I gotta tell you, I'm nervous, Nellie, about everything, and I really don't, I can appreciate your concern, but I don't know, that wasn't a concern that I had, and I'm nervous about everything.
Okay. I mean, again, I've brought it up before, and
I understand.
if you thought you could change it, I'd appreciate it.
Is the fence gonna be 4 foot high?
Yes.
You don't have, nothing corner front, it has to be a certain height, it can go be 4 feet.
Well, I think this is one, if I'm looking at the survey correct, I think this is one of those instances where this is their backyard and not their front yard, even though
Correct.
you would think that their house is on Dover,
It's not.
but it's not. It's on Dake.
All right.
The legal front is the narrow
Legal front
width.
is the narrow width, right.
Correct.
So they could go up to 6 feet, I think, under the code.
we don't care to do that.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Step right up, sir.
Hi, I'm Ray McWhinney. I live at 165 there, Dake Avenue. I was just here to speak in favor of it. I don't see any real issues here to speak in favor of, but
But you're speaking in favor of it, and that's
Yeah.
fine.
yeah.
All right, I'm sure they appreciate that. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone who'd like to talk about fences? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to note for the record that the DPW sent a letter saying that they didn't have a problem with this application as presented.
Correct,
Okay.
I saw that.
Okay.
I forgot to mention that, thank you. And then I think I see Mr. Catalano here. All right, before we can call that case, I'd make a motion that we take case tabled item ZB 1706-3 off the table and consider that at tonight's meeting.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, and we are all present.
ZB 1706-3, request by Nicholas Catalano for an area variance to park a commercial-type truck on premises 359 Harwick Road in an R1 residential district.
Hello again, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Nicholas Catalano, I live at 359 Harwick Road.
You could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the whole truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. So when we were here, when was that? Back in June?
Yep.
We discussed a couple different alternatives. You were going to look into those, and what did you find out?
So, moving forward with what we talked about raising the carport or ultimately getting a smaller vehicle to fit underneath it to hide it behind the house. I proceeded to go into work the next day, talked to my boss about the smaller vehicle, and that was sort of not so easy as I wanted it to go, but okay. So, moving forward throughout who I work with, I have quite a few contacts, and I poked around to try to get a couple guys to come and estimate how much it would cost to raise it up, what it would entail, what it would take, how long, and it's been quite a chore to get guys actually there to estimate it. Now, I don't oppose to the idea of it. I'm in favor of doing it. I would like to do it as long as it's affordable for me to do. I know that was a big thing you asked me, would I be willing to do that, and I was sort of questionable. I'm definitely willing to do that, and I'm still working on trying to contact people to come and look at it. Also through some of the contacts that I know, I had somebody come over the house and look at it, and I don't know if any of you guys have driven by. I think I gave you a picture the last time, possibly. And what came to mind in discussion to try to save on raising it or moving it would be on the front end of it, which would be on the Whittington side, obviously, to notch out, to make like a notch out, if that makes sense. Like, you know, there's an angle to sort of notch out a spot. I can back the truck in as far as it would need to go to have the actually cube part of the truck hidden underneath the carport. The front might still stick out, not out of the driveway, but out of the cover-up kind
Out
of
of the
thing.
cover.
Right. And that would be
So
something
it'll
that...
fit in there now?
It will go in there if I notch out the roof, where the roof is. I could, it's hard to
Oh,
sort
to
of
make it a
explain.
little higher?
Yeah, you
the
would
roof?
notch it out, and it would then, in turn, instead of being the low point at the bottom of the roof, wherever I end the notch, it would be the higher point. And then that higher point would allow me to back the truck underneath it. And that would be something that would be much more, I could do that sooner, and I think that's quite a bit less expensive. And it's something that I could do in-house, I mean, as in myself, who has experience with stuff like that. So I wanted to sort of throw that back at you guys and see what you thought about that idea.
So that would let you, if you did that, that would let you back the truck in?
Yep.
Most of the commercial visible part of the truck would
Yeah.
be under the roof?
Yep.
And the cab part would
Yep.
be sticking out?
The cab part would stick out, but it wouldn't go into
Not
the
into the
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
But it would stick out a little, you know, if you're driving down the road, you would see the front end of the white part of the truck, you know.
And it sounds like what you're saying is that the side that looks like the billboard, that will
Yes.
be covered up?
That will be backed in, right.
So that won't be
yep,
visible.
It'll be
Okay.
backed in, and it'll be a lot less visible than it is now, yes.
And what would be visible is similar to either a pickup truck or a van or something
Like a
like
van
that.
front.
Yeah.
Yep. Just like how you guys have the blue, you know, the highway department vans, same kind of front, just white.
Okay.
How long do you think it'd take you to get that done? Roughly?
Realistically, I would need some time. I would say maybe 3 to 4 months. I would like to get it done if I allowed. Hopefully by wintertime would be my shot, because I don't want to work in the cold. I already work in the cold as it is. So that would be sort of my goal, would be by wintertime. Which I guess that's a raw statement. 3 or 4 months, I would say. Obviously, a little longer would help me.
So, like December 15th?
December 15th or end of November, I mean, you know, 3.5 months.
November 30th, would that be sufficient time?
What are we in now? Yeah.
So like 3.5 months?
Yep. And then if for some reason I'm having a difficulty or it's not going, would I come back to you and obviously discuss that? And I'm not going to drag my feet. I'm just saying if I run into any kind of hiccups, obviously I'm going to communicate with you guys.
I know how these projects work. They seem pretty simple to begin with.
Right.
Straightforward. You get a time estimate, you get a budget estimate.
Right.
And usually both are at least 2 or 3 times what you estimated at the end.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right.
Well, not that I'm going to, yeah, go ahead.
No, because usually you run into something,
Right.
like
And
a main water pipe or an electrical line that jolts you for a while or something like that.
hope not.
You hope not. Yeah.
You speaking from experience?
I get a magazine that has on the back page all kinds of goofs that other people have done. I learned from them.
Well, then I'm gonna have you, see if you wanna come and help me.
No, that's all right. Any other questions or comments?
I actually have a question on that, if that is allowed, or if we happen to go that route. What would I be looking at for any kind of permit to do any kind of work like that? Is it something that's quite expensive? Is it something that I'll have a hard time getting approved for? Am I already sort of, where do I stand with that? Like, where would I move forward? I don't know if I'm jumping the gun or not, but.
Harry
No,
Ivers can answer that question.
So you'd make application to the building department for a building permit.
Okay.
And we could discuss with you at the time of application what the typical fee might be for a project like this.
Okay.
Building permit fees range based on the scope of a project, and so it's hard to, off the top of our head, tell you exactly what it would be, but
Sure.
there's a residential application fee, a residential certificate of compliance.
Okay.
At the very minimum. And that might be all you're looking at, but we'd have to look at the fee schedule a little bit more closely.
Right, and then obviously inspector.
That's part of the building permit
Okay,
process. So after this board renders a decision, if there's anything, and it would be stated on your decision letter that
Sure.
if there's a building permit associated with your project, you need to make sure you obtain that. So
Yep.
this approval is one thing, building code compliance is a separate issue.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, does he actually, for doing this, does he need a variance in this? Because he's now gonna be putting the truck behind the building or behind into the structure.
It's based on the type of the vehicle, so because it's not completely enclosed in the building, it's probably best and safest for him. He's already made the effort of making application, so I would contend that this board, if it was inclined to consider his alternate proposal, that you'd still grant the variance, indicating that with the finding statement related to the circumstances. And certainly,
Yeah, I was just going to say to supplement that, I think that what he's proposing is a factor that you can weigh for or against granting the variance, but the variance is based on the type of truck in this neighborhood.
Okay.
It's still required.
All right. I don't see anyone here who hasn't already been in front of us for some kind of an application tonight. So I'm assuming, but I'll ask anyway, is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone who would like to talk to us about the application who doesn't feel one way or the other? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I believe that concludes the matters that are on our agenda. So we will take a 10-minute recess. 125 Charlton Road. Is 125 Charlton still here? Apparently not, okay. 210 Meadow Circle. 179 Dake and 359 Harwick. All right. So the first item on the agenda for which the applicant is still present, I should say, and for which the applicant is still present, is the application pertaining to 49 Ontario View Street. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll make a motion, sir, on 49 Ontario View. We make the motion that we grant this, based on I don't believe it'll hurt the character of the neighborhood. It is a self-created issue, because she does want a nice deck in the back of the yard. I don't think it'll hurt the environment at all. And what was the last criteria I'm supposed to?
It's not going to alter the character of the
I'm
neighborhood.
not gonna alter the character of the neighborhood, but.
And whether there's an alternative that...
Oh, the alternative, that's it. The alternative would be in the event that she didn't make it go back as far, but then again, it wouldn't give her enough deck to enjoy. Also, I believe that based on looking in the backyards of the homes along that street, they all have similar setbacks with their decks and patios. So based on that criteria, I think we should let her enjoy a new deck.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, and the board is all present tonight. Next item on enjoy your deck. Next item on the agenda for which the applicant is still present is 151 Hillview Drive. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. I would make a motion that we grant the special use permit, subject to the conditions that we have come to customarily impose. When we were here last month, Michelle had a listing for us of all the conditions. Would it be possible to get a list of the conditions that we generally impose so that when we have an application like this, we can just reference that list and read it instead of having to rely on memories?
Absolutely, and I apologize. I think you might have actually asked for this the last time we entertained a COOP application, so I apologize if that was the case.
That's all right, I'm not sure. But among the applications, as I've explained to the applicant, the conditions would be that the animals have to be examined by a veterinarian every year and to get a letter that says that they're in good health. The wire screen, chicken wire, whatever it may be, should be down at least 1 foot and preferably 2, if possible, in the ground. I know there's a lot of roots around that area, but as deep down as you can get it. A maximum limit of 4 hens, and the 4 hens are not to be replaced, so if one passes away, then you'd have 3. The the coop is to be cleaned and maintained on a regular basis. The food is to be stored in a manner that does not allow for the attraction of vermin and other animals. The town, within a year, would be asked to check with your neighbors to see if there are any complaints. And I think that's
it, you got them.
That it? All right, on those conditions,
I'll second.
all right. Any discussion? Again, for those people who are watching, and for the sake of, I know that I spoke with one of your neighbors not just in reference to something else, and it came up. And what I explained to them, and I'll explain to everyone who's watching, is that this is an issue that is not a question for us to decide whether or not chickens or goats, I think, are also permitted animals. There's a whole list of animals that the town board has already decided are permitted in the town. And they've asked us to set the conditions on which they will be acceptable in a neighborhood. So the question is not whether, but how for us. And that's what we're dealing with. And the motion has passed 7 votes in favor, I believe, right? Did we do?
I don't think,
No.
I don't think we took a vote, but I'd like to just amend my second, that the coop be drawn in accord with the plans that were submitted with the application.
I think that's the other condition that we usually impose is that
Yes.
it, yes, absolutely. Substantially, yes.
Substantially the same.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I must have had some foresight. 7 votes in, motion carries, 7 votes in favor. Nobody opposed, no abstentions, and we are all still present. The next application for which, on the agenda for which the applicant remains present is 210 Meadow Circle. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does someone wish to make an application or a motion with respect to this application? I'll make a motion then that we approve the application for the variance with the following findings. The proposed project will not have any negative impact upon the neighborhood character. In fact, it might improve the neighborhood character by having an occasional, at least, presence in the front of the house instead of the back. The alternative that would not require a variance would be simply replacing the steps, but they could be replaced, as I understand it, with a wooden staircase and even a wooden platform of some form. This is a little bigger than what would not require a variance. It is not a substantial request. It will not have a negative effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the area. The application is partially self-created to the extent that the applicant is seeking to change from just a staircase, but to the extent that the staircase that was there has deteriorated to the point where it was unsafe, it is not self-created. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Just one thing, are you gonna stain it to match the color of the house? So it doesn't look like a deck in the front, so, okay. That's the only thing I get.
All right, so a condition of the variance will be that it be stained to match the house. All right, with that condition, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. We are all still present. The next application for which the applicant remains present is 179 Dake Avenue. This is also a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this request to install the new fencing based on the following findings. The only possible change to the neighborhood is going to be improvement. When you take something that's broken and rusted and you replace it with something new, it's definitely a positive move. There are no other alternatives not requiring a variance because it runs right along the edge of the property. What they're looking, and it's not substantial because we're talking about 6 inches. That's not substantial. And it would not affect the environmental or physical conditions of the neighborhood. It's just a new fence. And it's not chain link. What do you call that? It's picket fence, yeah. And it's not even self-created because it's something that nature did over time. So based on that, I move that we approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, and the board remains all present. Next application for which the applicant remains present is the application with respect to 359 Harwick Road. Does anyone wish to make an anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the counter proposal.
Oh, first I need to say this is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. I'm sorry, continue, Mr. Evans.
That we accept the compromise proposal. I think Ms. Catalano has worked well with the board, coming up with a creative solution that's easily reversible when you sell this home, and fits the need of what's required to protect the van.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. But we need to give them a time limitation. We talked about end of November, last day of November. Gives them some time to keep the truck where it is for now until he can do the reconstruction of the roof.
Yes, since Ms. Catalano does work full-time, and I think he'll be doing the work himself, I'm actually okay with even extending this until the beginning of spring. Give him some time to gather his material, do the work himself, and rebuild.
How about if we indicate on here that he'll have it completed by November 30th, but if he runs into difficulties, he can have additional time to be granted by the town.
I agree with that.
All right?
Okay.
And then just to clarify, the motion that's on the table is for this particular box truck, right? 10 feet tall, 7 feet wide, and 12 feet long. If it were any other type of commercial truck that fell within the prohibited categories, he would need to come back. That's
It's
the
limited to this specific truck,
Okay.
yes. Is my understanding, is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Any discussion?
I'd just like to say that I was impressed with the whole atmosphere of compromise on this, where he spoke to his boss, he tried to work something out, he's done some research, he's willing to do it himself, and it's gonna be a win-win situation. So I just want to make that comment.
Any other comments or discussion? I would second that. I was very impressed with the efforts that he went to deal with the questions that were raised back in June, I think it was.
What was the time limit we set?
November 30th. But
With an allowable extension?
right, upon a showing, what I put it here is upon a showing of good cause. We'll leave that to the town to decide what good cause is. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, and the board all remains present. Next, first application for which the applicant is no longer present is the matter of 1378 East Ridge Road. This is an unlisted action, and we've been presented with a short environmental assessment form that indicates that there are no or small impact anticipated to occur with the granting of, if this application were to be granted, and therefore I would propose that we adopt a negative declaration with respect to this application.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. The board remains all present. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll make a motion that we approve this application as requested for the 15 spots. I don't believe it'll change the character of the neighborhood because it is a light industrial area. I believe one of the key factors in the limited number of spaces is the fact that he's redoing the inside of that building, which will have quite a few spaces inside. So the cars that he's working on will probably mostly be inside. And that the fact that just down the street on Ridge Road, he owns a pretty good size auto dealership, which has more than enough adequate spaces for his cars. So it shouldn't be necessary that he'll have an issue with the parking spots. It is a self-created issue. The alternative is there is a plot of land up toward the road that is grassed in at this point. But I don't believe it's necessary to use that alternative to expand what he has. Environmentally, I don't think it hurts the environment. So based on that criteria, I believe we should approve it.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. The board remains all present. The last application to be considered tonight is with respect to 125 Charlton Road. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application? All right, I'll make a motion that we grant the variance as requested. In support of that, I would make the following findings of fact. There will not be any substantial negative change to the character of the neighborhood. It will continue to remain a residential neighborhood. The alternatives that don't require a variance would be a 4-foot, or actually 3.5-foot fence, I believe, which would not, although it wouldn't require a variance, it also would not accomplish any of the purposes for which the variance is sought, namely to prevent people from crossing the property and perhaps more importantly to afford the homeowner and her family some privacy, which at the present time doesn't seem to be available to them. And because it's a corner lot, in the absence of fencing that on 2 sides would not be available. It is not a substantial request in the sense that she's only looking to have the fence a little bit higher. There will be no adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions, and I suppose that you could say that it's self-created because she bought the house and it didn't have a fence and she knew that there wasn't privacy, but I don't think that rises to the level of self-creation to the point that would warrant not granting the variance.
I'll second. This is a corner lot. They need the privacy.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. We are all still present, and unless there's any other business to come before the board, we are now adjourned.